Welcome to the dark side of Bloxwich. I'm Richard Clark. I'm the director for One Love Community Music and Arts, and the We Are Bloxwich story has intrigued me for a number of years, largely because from the time we opened in 2022, having taken the building over in 2021, the stories that the local residents have wanted to tell me about Bloxwich has really excited me. However, there's also a dark side to Bloxwich, which to a certain degree has remained hidden or untalked about, and people have lost their memories as well, which is very strange every time we've brought it up. In the 1950s through to the 1980s, the landscape and demographics of Britain were starting to change. Again, driven by the need to bring in cheap labour and rebuild Britain after the war, the UK government saw the need to ask for help from the Commonwealth countries of the Caribbean, India, Australia and various others. Starting with what we now call the Windrush era, migrants from various Commonwealth countries came to help rebuild Britain after the Second World War, at the bequest of Queen Elizabeth II and the Labour government of the time in the late 1940s.
Worked and lived in Bloxwich for probably about 25 years. Worked at the Electric Palace, which is now the Wetherspoons on the High Street, but now we're moved into Blacknell.
I'm Jackie. I'm a grandmother of 12. I've lived in Warsaw right since 1968, right, and I work voluntary for the Afro-Caribbean Centre in Warsaw.
Thank you. I'm Pauline. I've worked around Walsall and Bloxwich. I'm a mother of 4 and 7 grandchildren, and yes, I went to school here, born here, in the UK, and so yes, my experience is based on life. Mm-hmm.
My name's Ruth Dawes, the same as the other two ladies. Was born in England. Well, Jackie wasn't born in England, but I was born in England. But yes, experienced a lot of racism over the years and that, but as they say, what don't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes, experienced racism in Bloxwich. On the National Front, they had meetings in the pub on the High Street, which is now the hardware shop. You had the Queen's Head just by the Asda. It was, quite rife. Different areas had different levels of racism. And the racism making field, it was normal really, because racism was everywhere, even in Wolverhampton. So, from the age of probably 7, that's when you knew about racism. So, my knowledge of National Front is, it was quite rife. Bloxwich, around Coalpool, it was, they had regular meetings. So, you was told to keep away, but we still went there. It didn't really matter, didn't really bother us or matter us, really. We've had confrontation with the National Front, going into pubs, even on club doors. So, I know a lot has changed now, so I thought more integrated, really, but, it's still there. Attitudes improved. Slightly, but not much, Back then it was quite open, but now it's more, I can say, undercover, really. Back in the day, it was just open, they'll be openly racist to you in front of your face, but now it's, how can you say, more covert, to say little things, and, well, once you know racism, it's always there. There is still the same attitude. It's like a generation thing, it's passed down. But it has gotten better, The influx of different cultures, coming into Bloxwich and all the different areas. No, it's changed quite a lot.
I came here when I was 6 in 1968. My mum lived in the Indian man house, the original Indian man house.
Yeah.
Mum was in a one room with 3 children, right? My mum's a nurse. My mum works how long for us to live. And then when my mum got a house, we got a house in Shorty on a road, right, which was a crescent. We lived in the centre of it. No other black people lived up Shorty at that time, right? And you did take the calling of the names. But mum always says to us, make sure them to say we're better than them. So my mum had the best garden, the best house. You had to make sure you was dressed like you was going to, looking your loveliest when you're out at street and stuff like that, right? We took all the shaming and whatever, and the fighting and the backwards and forwards, right? For everybody to get where they are now, there are a lot of the African countries are coming over here and thinking we not do nothing. We do.
Yeah.
We take the pain and the can, and so can step up and do all these things. You know what I mean? Like the kids. I mean, I've got kids in their 30s, right? Some of the things they're doing now, I'd have loved to be able to do that when I was their age. But the only reason I never did it is because of the stop you.
Lived in Willinghall and moved to Bloxwich when I got a flat. Not realising Bloxwich, I think I've heard things over the years, but when I saw the property, I thought, well, that's beautiful. I want to move there. And it was the biggest mistake I'd done. I live right next to the spotted cow, so you had all the people going to the pub on the night. And soon as they spotted me, that was it, especially the men. I upset the men, not so much the women, even some of the children as well. But it's like, soon as they saw me, it's like this look on the face, like they just hated me. What are you doing in that flat? What are you doing in Bloxwich? So I sort of sometimes had to work out what time I was leaving, what time I had to come back in the house in case the people were outside from the pub. Plus there was a bus stop outside the flat, so that made it worse. And it was right opposite the school there, so everybody was literally at the bus stop. You do feel scared, because it was just me one in Bloxwich. So I complained to my housing, Accord Housing, and after about 6 months, because Accord there was a lot of black people working there, the woman says no. We'll look for a property and we'll move you.
Life in Bloxwich is like a missionary settling in a mission land. And we all know what it means coming newly to another country. So though through our formation, we are meant to be missionaries. And when we say that we're meant to be missionaries, we are being equipped that you can be sent to anywhere. And normally we're also being prepared, knowing that as a missionary, you are going to have some challenges. But these challenges are lived in the spirit of sacrifice. So that is how, knowing that already we are aware that we are going to meet some challenges, and then we are happy wherever we are being sent because we are missionaries.
I'm Juliana, and I grew up on Shakespeare Crescent, which is about 2-3 miles from Bloxwich. Went to school in the area, Harding Junior School.
I'm Clayton Hartwell, I'm 61 years old. I grew up on Shakespeare Crescent, 134, I believe. And I had to fight to get to school at the age of 9. You know, I think there was 4 or 5 brothers at the time, and I think I was younger than one. So because there's a year difference, they says, well, you've got to fight him before you get to school. And, you know, well, I knocked him out anyway. You know what I mean? Did they never bother me again after that, sort of thing. You know what I mean? And matter of fact, I seen him the other day actually in town, and he started crying and says to me that it was his father who used to tell him that if they see any black people, to bully him and take anything from him and sort of thing, and don't come in the house. You know, his father was like a scoundrel, man. Send him out shoplifting and things like that. You know, so I don't hold them responsible for anything. Because at the end of the day, they was brought up that way, innit?
Society was very aggressive back then. I mean, when I started school, I always remember, for me, it was kind of scary really, because I hadn't been amongst so many white people, white kids, so it was a bit scary because we always stayed in the street where we lived. Although I gained quite a few friends from school at the time, but there was always that difference, that sense of being different. Black was seen as he was the underdog. It wasn't nice being black in the eyes of white people, and they very much projected that onto you. I think what was very strong was the belief that black people couldn't learn. Black people had no sense. That we were dirty, regardless of how they looked. You know, being in school on the playground, and you'd have some scuffy little white kid calling you blackie, you're dirty, you stink, and it's like, it used to be quite I was very angry, but it just didn't make sense, because we weren't brought up to be racist, we weren't brought up to hate white people. You were just...
Well,
then racism for me was something that I encountered out there in school. I remember being shocked the first time I was called blackie. I thought, what's wrong with being black? All of a sudden there was something wrong with being black. It was a shock. And then one of the things I always remember, I had long hair, which then ended up being cut off because my teacher in school, one of the teachers in school, in junior school, she would put me to sit next to this white child who wasn't very clean, and she used to have knits. So I used to go home with knits all the time, and my mother would say to me, don't sit next to that girl, don't sit next to her. And I'd say to my mum, well, I can't do anything about it, the teacher keeps putting me there. But what I did try to do was sit next to my friends, and it wasn't until years later that I was talking to Donovan and talking to him about that particular incident and that experience for myself. And he said, that teacher was racist, Julie. But when I looked back, I could see it, but at the time as a child, I couldn't see that it was about that.
My own story is quite an interesting one in terms of I've been in Walsall since 1984. I started originally in the Delves, which was Fulbrook, and that was on the edge of the Yew Tree Estate, which back then the Yew Tree Estate was also well known for a lot of racism and attacks, etc. And in Fulbrook, which was almost an overflow from the Yew Tree, you had a lot of racism that was there. And that was when I first became aware of direct racism, where people would directly call you out based on the colour of your skin, and they were running a book on where I worked, on how long I would stay, because I was the second black person to be at that youth club. I was a youth worker back then. And I heard stories about the other youth club leader had his windscreen and car attacked by the participants from the youth club, but also by parents. So I was there, and it took a while for me to really be accepted within the community and within the youth club. And that was interesting because one night my youth club leader had said to me, can I pick her up because she hadn't got a lift the next day? And I agreed, so I drove to her house, which was on Stevenson Avenue. I come along Stevenson Avenue, not sure where the actual address was, driving down slowly, and I spotted the number. I parked my car, I jumped out of the car, only to be seen by the youth club leader dashing out of her house, shouting, get back in, get back in. And I got back into my car, and she ran and jumped in the car, and she went, drive, drive. And I looked at her and thought, wow. She says, "Oh, you don't know what would happen. They'd have bricked my house." And I said, "Why?" "For you, being round here." And that really surprised me.
Everybody knew from the NF graffiti on the wall by the market, you know, Combat 18, signed up everywhere. Everybody knew what it was like. The pub over the road, you know, you knew what you were getting into when you walked in there, you know, and you certainly wouldn't, if you had an Asian girlfriend, you definitely wouldn't walk around here. And at the time I'd had an Asian girlfriend, and we just never around here, never. You know, and it was absolutely, it wasn't hidden, it wasn't subversive, it was in your face. You know, I suppose it reminds you, if you watch the telly now, of like Mississippi, you know, it was just literally blatant. And anybody who says that they weren't aware of it, well, they must have been living in a bubble. Honest to God, it was everywhere. And you know, even the local press would identify that Bloxwich was a particularly heartland of the National Front.
The only time they liked us, if you was black and a sports person, if you was black and a nurse,
Or singer.
if you was black and you was a singer, right? All the rest of the jobs in between, it's like we wasn't allowed to do it. I mean, now we got more chance of, we got more opportunities. The world is open to us. But back in the day, we fought.
And then the only other opportunity we had was YTS. Who wants to work for £15 a week? The admin office making coffee. Everybody else is on computer, typewriters, everything. Every day I'm making coffee. So I decided in the end, I had to go. There was no opportunity there for me. But there was opportunities there for everybody else, but not for me. I don't know how you found it.
No, it was exactly the same. I mean, I left school in 1974, and by 1974, a few of us had already made our minds up that we weren't staying in the Midlands. You know, it had been horrendous for a good 3 to 4 years before I reached 16. You know, absolutely, you know, I wanted to be an air hostess. The first thing the careers teacher said to me, well, you'll need all your own teeth. And I sat there thinking, my smile has been the biggest asset of my life. And you're sitting there thinking, I won't have my teeth. What makes you think I won't have my teeth? I couldn't get it. I didn't understand it. And I was really crushed by it. And another couple of my friends, they wanted to join the army, and they were being put off joining the army. No, joining the Women's Royal Air Force, so the RAF. They were being told to go and join the army, so the foot patrol, the people who get sent out first to be shot. You know, that's what, you know, so the encouragement was never there.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And we kind of went to college as a bit of a sidestep because we didn't know what else to do because we weren't getting jobs. We couldn't even get Saturday jobs for a long time until me and Christine got a job at Littlewoods. Do you know what I mean? And then they put a lot of us in the cafe. So we're there to serve.
To serve.
Always to serve. And it took us a while, but you know, I ended up on the wall counter and Christine ended up on another counter. But all the black girls came into Littlewoods, ended up in the cafe first.
There was a nightclub here in Bloxwich called Flick's Nightclub. A very good nightclub. But on some days they decided they'd had their quota of black individuals attending the club. So they would find any excuse not to let you in, you weren't dressed appropriately, your hair's not right, we're only allowing girls in tonight, lads. And they were very polite about it, but it was obvious that the quota was reached, which was usually around 10. So those were things. Another occasion, one of the directors, David, he was chased from the nightclub, fell in the road on the high street, and even to this day, he says he remembers the swing of someone's foot just missing his head as he had fallen in the street while they were being chased by a group of skinheads who were basically trying to make sure that they did not come in the area. And to a certain degree, those hidden racist undertones and underbelly has been within the community. The National Front operated from the local pubs. It became known as the headquarters for the National Front. Many of the individuals I've spoken to during the process skirt around knowing that the National Front existed, but they weren't part of it. And it was one of those phrases that when I spoke to one of the publicans, that he had received a lot of racism, but in the end, they found common purpose in the fact that he was a football hooligan from Birmingham, and those individuals accepted him on the level of he was one of them. And that same argument was something that I acknowledged when I was playing football for Fullbrook, because the youth club asked me to play for Fullbrook football team, because then it was quite good. The manager of Fullbrook, which was then Silverdale, asked me to come and play. And the first couple of games, there was all monkey chants and all of that type of thing. And then the manager came to me, I think his name was Sid, and Barry, came over and said, if you have any problems, you come and tell me, I'll sort them out. And then the whisper was, he's all right, he's one of us. I'd scored a few goals by then, I'd actually made my name in the team, and they pretty much accepted me as one of their own. So, although the racism was still there, I was one of them, so I was okay.
I was invited to join the police force, believe it or not. At the time, they had a bad reputation. We're talking about the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I grew up in the 60s. I'm 61 now. So, in the 70s, late 70s, when I was invited at that time, we'd had the riots in Warsaw, the riots in Bloxwich. I remember my brothers and their friends coming out to Bloxwich one evening, all dressed up and everything, to go to some pub around the corner from here. They walked out. When they came home in the evening, they were running back. It was one of them, they were running. The whole lot of them running down the street. All you heard was this roaring noise of these black guys with a few white guys that was with them, being chased by about 20 white guys running down the street after them. So my memory, and the police, they weren't anywhere to be seen. Every experience that I'd had, or family or friends had had, of the police at that time, and shortly after that, was very negative. I remember being in Warsaw of an evening when we started going out of a night time, and there used to be lots of fights between black and white people, and the police officers would come out and arrest black people, put the back to the white person who's beating up the black person over there and questioning the black person over here, knowing that there's 3 white guys over there surrounding one black guy and smacking him about. You know, so that, for myself, it was like, no thank you. That was the end, that was my interview. You know, and that was my experience. I thought, there's no way I'm going into that. So that was my memory. And so it put me off. It put me off. You see it on the TV as well. Everybody was always against people who were black. You couldn't afford to be pro-black yourself, because, again, as I said earlier, that was used against you. Anybody I know that went to court that was black either didn't come back or came back with a fine.
Oh yeah.
It was all, and in terms of looking for employment around the town, black people wasn't often employed. They weren't often employed, so then there was very little choice. So after school, I think I spent many years in college.
The pub on the bottom of this road, I don't know which one it is, right? But every week there was a National Front meeting in there.
Yeah.
Every week there was a National Front meeting in there. Why did I end up going in there? But like, there's a National Front meeting in there.
Like even my partner, when his friend said he's moving to Blakenall, I said, "You moving to Blakenall? Are you crazy?" But nobody troubles him.
Yeah.
They're on their street, what's predominantly white, but they don't trouble nobody. Keep themselves to themselves, and that's the only way you avoid them.
Yeah, but it's not integrated, is it?
No.
I mean, people are talking about integration, but
No.
you know, Bloxwich was an area which did not want to be integrated. Do you know what I mean? And to this day, it feels very much the same to me.
Yeah.
I think they tolerate us walking around on the road, but I don't think they like us.
No.
I don't think that like is there. I mean, I think they like everything about us. That
They like the
music,
music,
dress sense, sense of loyalty, this brotherhood thing. They think that when we fist pump, you know, that we're all huggy, touchy, feely. Till now, a lot of people have taken on our mannerisms, but they don't like us.
Yeah.
They like everything about us. You know, you've got white dreads, you've got. You know, they know their reggae inside out, probably know more than me.
Yeah.
The reggae boy, what's that reggae group what's just started around Wolverhampton, the man and the woman, they're both white and they've got an amazing following. And they play reggae. They do reggae.
But if you look
all
at
the white people
if you look at the clientele of Bloxwich though, it's an older population. Up here is an older population, middle class population, I would say as well. Where you find the area where it's the lower white people, right, a lower area probably, you know, like I used to live in Karma. I don't know if you know Karma. Karma was we'd call the centre of Asia, or the centre of every nation now, because Polish, the Romanians, everything's up there, right. You find the white people that live in those areas are more. They're more tolerant. Tolerant. Sorry, they're more tolerant than an area like this, right? You can see it's older, so they come from a generation where they used to use the word "n" and the coloured word or whatever, right? So they find it very hard. So this area itself, right, it's a lot to change. You are getting younger people coming in, and I think. 30, 50 years time, we probably won't be talking about this in Bloxwich because of the influx. But because of the people who are living around here now, it's that generation.
Because I actually believe that back then, white people didn't know, they just followed fashion. You know, it was just okay to hate black people. I remember being in school and learning or hearing on one occasion where my brother's English teacher set an assignment for the class, and the assignment went something like, imagine one day you woke up and you were black, what would you do?
Well,
there is always fear of unknown wherever one is going. Anyone who finds himself or herself in any new environment, there is always a tendency of fear of unknown. What am I going to experience? What is going to happen? And also, for example, coming newly, there is that difference of accent. When you speak, someone must turn, oh, where is he coming from? So there is always something like that anywhere you go. So
with time, you get used to it, and everything seems, people become friendly, and the communication become fluent and more understandable. And so we enjoy our mission. Wherever we are, we take that place as our own home. People we meet as our brothers and sisters. So that's why we give our life for God, so that we can serve God's people. We don't have a family of our own. We don't get children. We don't marry. So we give our whole life for God. And what does it mean? To serve God in the people we meet.
But before I came, the bishop did say, he said, Carlton, I must warn you, there's some BNP presence in the area, and we have had some issues. So I didn't even know what BNP was. Ministering in Bloxwich, I became very aware you have generations and generations upon generations of unhealed trauma.
Having met quite a lot of the older generation, you can tell that some of the feelings were probably more generational to the time, and probably ignorance, not knowing, and more following rather than understanding or welcoming for black individuals. So it's been an experience, and it's been good sort of watching and talking to the community and being part of what we're doing here now as part of One Love Community Music and Arts, and also as part of Expressions.